This is a walkthrough of creating a 5-generation pedigree family tree layout in Microsoft Excel. This is designed to print on a single landscape page. The pedigree layout is where your ancestors are laid out horizontally with the 16 great-great-grandparents at the rightmost side. You may be looking for the more classic layout, which looks like this. I'll put a link in the description below for a walkthrough that makes this layout, but you notice that it's a 4-generation tree. I can only fit the 8 great-grandparents within the landscape format. If you want to have a 5-generation tree or more, you're going to need the pedigree layout. This particular format has the first and last name, a date field, and an ancestor photo. If you prefer a format without photos, it looks something like this. If you want the simplest format, it can look something like this. But we'll focus on laying out this particular format, and you can just take away the elements that you don't want. If you want a shortcut, we offer the templates I've just shown you in a single bundle for the price of a decent cup of coffee. If you want to do it yourself, let's get on with it. The first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a new blank page. Step 1 is to set it to landscape mode. Let's go up to File, Print, and here the default for a new sheet is actually Portrait, which isn't what we want. We want to set this to the landscape orientation. And when we go back to the page, you'll now see dotted lines that represent the printed area for landscape. We're going to work with columns A to K, but we are going to change the width of these columns. But I'm going to give you the exact column widths to set. Don't worry about scribbling notes about the column widths. I've got everything documented in a complimentary article on our website. This is the article. There's a link in the description below to the article. I'm on step 2, and I've got the precise column widths for you to set. So the first lot I'm going to set are columns A, G, and I. I'm going to set them to 7. I'm highlighting A. I'm holding down the Control key, highlighting G, still holding down the Control key and highlighting I. I'm right-clicking at the top here, choosing column width, and I'm setting that to 7. The next set I want to change are B, D, F, H, and K to 19. So choose column width, and I'm changing that to 19, which is a much wider size. These columns are going to hold the name fields. Okay. Notice how we've actually gone beyond the printed landscape boundary now, but that's okay because the last thing we're going to do is we're going to change columns C, E, and J to this very small width of 1. C, E, and J. Right click at the top of a column here, column width, and change that to 1. And now you can see that K has moved inside the landscape printed boundary. If your machine is different to mine, it's possible that with these widths, your column K is falling outside the printed boundary. In that case, you simply need to reduce by a small size some of these columns. I suggest that you change B, D, F, H, and K. These hold the name fields, that you reduce them down by 1 from 19 down to 18. And see how that looks. See if K has now been brought inside the boundary. If not, reduce it down by 1 more point and keep going until you are nicely fitted within a landscape page. Now that we've got the page layout set up, we're going to create the first of our person boxes. We're going to create a border around cells B16 and B17. So I'm going to highlight both cells. I'm going up to the Home menu, expanding the border options, and I'm choosing this thin outside border. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the font type. The default font in the current versions of Microsoft Excel is Calibri. I think it used to be Arial in some older versions. Both of those fonts are quite wide in terms of the letters. I want a more narrow font so that most names will fit within the box, that I don't have to truncate names. Microsoft provides several narrow fonts. The one that I like best is called Bandshift Condensed. I've got the cells highlighted. I'm going up here to the font type in the home menu, expanding that. Just type in BAHN to get me the Bandshift fonts. As you can see, there's several of them, and I'm going to choose this one here, Bandshift Condensed, for the name fields. Just to show you what that looks like, I will put in a name. You can see that long first name, long surname fits nicely within the field. For the cell below the name field, I like to put in the dates. Let's say it's 1970 and no death date. I keep the name field left justified. That's by personal choice, but I like to have the date field centered. And then I also like to have it in a slightly lighter font than the name field, just for the look and feel of this when it prints out. So for the date, I like to set it to Bandshift Light Condensed. The next step is something that you shouldn't skip over. Suppose that name was even longer, so Postlethwaite was Postlethwaite Wiggins Botham. As you can see, that is now spilling over into the adjacent cells, which is not a good look and feel for when we print this out. I want long names to be truncated so everything fits within the cells that I've defined. There's several ways to ensure this. Some of them don't always work. The way that I find is both simple and reliable is to go to the adjacent cell, the cell right next to B16, and put in a space. So I'm just typing space, and that ensures that the B16 cell doesn't spill over. I'm not going to have that problem with my date cell, but suppose you like to have geographical information inside this field, then you're probably going to want to have the space in C17 as well. So that means that these four cells go together. And as we're going to speed up this process by copying our formatted name fields to our other ancestors, it's useful to get that first set of cells formatted in the way that you like. So if you want your name to be centered, do it now. Finally, I'm going to set the color for a female person in this tree. For females, I tend to choose a light orange, males a light blue. Highlighting B16, I'm going up to the background color here, the fill color, and I am choosing this color here, which is orange accent 2. I'm also going to set a background color for the date field, and I like to choose a very light gray. So I'm expanding the fill color here, and I am choosing this gray accent 3. Now we're going to create the first of our paternal ancestors, in other words, the father. We're going to use copy and paste to speed up this process. The important point is to make sure you copy 4 cells and not 2. So you get the cells that have the spaces that are adjacent to our name and date fields. I'm holding down the Shift key and highlighting the range of B16, C16, B17, and C17. I'm copying them with Control C, and then I'm going to place my cursor into cell D8 and I'm pasting with Control V. The point of this is that I've also brought over these little fields with the spaces in them, and that will ensure that the truncation works for very long names. As this is a male ancestor, I am going to change the color of the name field. I've got the name field highlighted now, just D8. I'm going up to the fill color and I'm choosing this light blue, the blue accent 1. And I am now going to clear out the placeholder name. I'm leaving the date color the same. I'm just clearing out the placeholder for the date. So now I have a formatted male ancestor. I am now going to copy these 4 cells to all the male ancestor fields in my 5-generation pedigree family tree. Highlight our 4 cells, for the paternal ancestor, D8, E8, D9, and E9. Control C to copy. And I'm going to paste them into these cells that I list in the companion article. So we've got F4. This is the paternal grandparent. And we've got F20. This is the maternal grandfather. H2, H10, H18, and H26. K1, 5, 9, there's basically 4 cells down each time, starting at the top. So that was K1, and then 4 down every step of the way. So K5, K9, so those are all the boxes for the male ancestors. Then I'm going to do similar for the female ancestors using our pre-formatted home person over here. So I'm just going to clear out the placeholder names, the placeholder date. Again, just make sure you copy the 4 cells. So that's B16, C16, B17, and C17. So Control C. We're putting this into the mother area, which is D24. And then these cells here, F12, F28, 12, that's the paternal grandmother, F28, the maternal grandmother. Then for the H's, we've got 6, 14, 22, and 30. 6, 14, 22, and 30. And then this one is simple. So for the great-great-grandparents, it's basically in the spaces we have left. So here we go. And that's it. Remember, we're going for a look like this. So we've got these vertical lines and horizontal lines. And we'll start with this set here. Above the home person, we want to create a single vertical line aligned at about halfway across the name box. To insert a line, we're using the Shapes feature. Go to Insert, Illustrations, Shapes, and choose this line here without any arrows. So then click into the general area of where you want the line to be. It doesn't really matter because we're going to move it. And draw down your cursor to have a vertical line. The default color seems to be a light blue, so the first thing I want to do is change that to black. So up here, I'm just going to choose this dark one line. I'm going to align the top of the vertical line with the bottom of cell B8. So just use the grid lines to help you. Click on the line and you get these circles. And then my best tip for you is not to use drag and drop, to use the arrow keys. So while you've got the line selected, nudge it upwards or downwards with the up and down arrow. So I'm just nudging upward with the arrow, and once the circle is over the horizontal line there, it's probably about right. Once you've got the top anchored, my next tip is that you use the height control rather than trying to drag this down. So right click the line, choose size and position. And over here we have the height control, and we can nudge the height up. And as we nudge it up, if you look to your left, the line is moving down. And we just keep nudging until it intersects with the top of the name box. The next thing to do is that I do want this line to be around about the center, and with an empty box that's very difficult to tell. So what I suggest is that you insert some almost random letters. I'm going to insert and that just goes outside the boundary and of course is truncated. So that is displaying about 24 characters. So the middle is at about position 12, which happens to be above the M, which I actually got about right. That's just through practice. But basically, suppose you kind of put it, plucked it here, then you'd simply move it along to the right with your arrow, with your right arrow key, move it along to the right until it's above the M. Then I'm going to take away this placeholder, and now I've got my first vertical line. The next thing I'm going to do is give myself the horizontal line. So again, I go to Insert, Illustrations, Shapes, and now I'm just going to drag along to the right here. Again, I'm changing the color, and now I'm going to position this into place. So I'm going to anchor the left side to the top of the vertical line. I'm just nudging left with the arrow key. And then in order to see that it's actually is intersecting, you have to click away, which is a little bit annoying, and that isn't quite right. I've undershot a little bit. I need to move that up one notch. So I'm selecting the horizontal line. I'm nudging up with the up arrow key. I'll go one more nudge up, and that's it. That's perfect. But it's still too short. So having anchored the left-hand side, I'm going to go back over to the format shapes, and this time I'm going to use the width control. I'm going to click up, and I'm watching the width lengthen until it intersects, and that is exactly what I want. And once you've got your first set into place, it's easier then to use copy and paste. So I'm going to take my vertical line, I'm going to copy it, Control C, Control V. I'm just going to drag that to a reasonable position, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys to nudge it into place. I'll find out soon enough if that's aligned, because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my perfect horizontal line. I'm going to get that into place, just dragging it down, and then using the arrows to nudge it into place. That is our first set of connector lines. So we're going to keep this copying and adjusting. I'm going to copy the vertical line. I'm now going to put it here. And I'm just going to keep working it down until the top here is anchored with the grid line of the bottom of D4. Once I've got this anchored, and now using the size control, the height control over here to the right, I'm going to decrease the height, and as you can see, the line moves upwards, it shortens until I get it exactly on the money. This should be a straightforward copy of the horizontal line because the distances for the horizontal line are the same. I just need to nudge that into place using the grid line. That is exactly what I want. Now, I said I'd give you a trick. Just watch. I'm highlighting cell D4, E4. I'm holding down the Shift key to making sure I'm selecting the range from D4 and D4 down to D7 and E7. I then copy all those cells, and I place my cursor. I come down here, I place my cursor into D20, hit copy, and you can see I've got a perfect copy, right? That just saves you a little bit of time. We still have to do the kind of more manual copy and place for these lines here. So I'll just copy my vertical line, give myself a copy. Once I've got that into place, we can repeat the trick of copying all the cells that hold the lines. I've selected that range, copy, place my cursor into D26, hit paste, and there you have it, a little bit of time saving. And we simply repeat that method, the initial copy of a set of lines, and once we've got them in place, we can copy the entire cells down. So I'll just copy this guy, copying 4 cells, F2, G2, F3, G3, that range of 4 cells, and I'm pasting into F10, F18, and F26. Then repeat the more manual copy and paste. Then I'm going to copy the 4 cells that encase those 2 lines and paste into F14, F22, and F30. Okay, so that was 3rd to 4th generation, just one set to go. This line here, which we're going to copy, is 0.5 centimeters. It's going to be half the height of 0.25 centimeters when we have it sized correctly over here in this H1 field. So Control C, Control V, drag it over, give myself the long first name, long last name. And to get it positioned, I'm going to reduce the height. I'm going to half it down to 0.25. I'm going to type in 0.25, select it, and slowly drag it down over the M. I want it to intersect, bring it down one more nudge with the arrow. There we go. And then I'm going to copy this horizontal line using the width control over here. I'm going to lengthen it until that is perfect. Going to take these 2 cells, H1 and I1, copy those, and then paste above each of the ancestor cells in this set. Then I've got my correctly sized vertical line. I'm going to copy that. Then copy the horizontal line. That's perfect. Copying H4, I4, and J4, pasting here, here, and hallelujah, the last one is here. Just get rid of these placeholders to make everything look pristine, and now cue the applause. With this format, I've given you enough space to put a photo to the left of the name fields. But once you've got your picture saved to your local machine, I'm going to show you now how to insert it into the Excel document. So let's say we're working with this particular paternal ancestor. Just place your cursor round about where you want the picture to be inserted. We'll then change the positioning. So I'm going to stick it into G2. Go up to the Insert menu, expand Illustrations, and this time click on Pictures, choose Insert Picture from this device, and then you'll use the Explorer to go find your picture. I'll pick this one, click Insert, and it plops it there. And then you can use the arrow keys to position it into place. You can also resize the picture here with these controls. You can make it smaller, make it larger. Ultimately, the final version is going to look something like this. Or if you prefer these other formats, like without the photos, the choice is yours. If you want the shortcut, we have a bundle of these 4 formats available in a single spreadsheet as a downloadable purchase for the price of a good cup of coffee. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go grab that bundle and save yourself a bit of time.